Dallas of the Comedy Hustlers here. I think for today's video, I'm going to do a little bit of game review. And I need to catch up because I haven't done any so far this year, and there's been some pretty good releases. Some that I personally like, some big titles, and some maybe you've never even heard of. So, let's get started with Uncharted 4. I think some of the best parts of Uncharted 4 come from the action-adventure elements. It's almost like playing a Michael Bay game. There's a lot of big explosions, gunfights, but there's a little bit of stealth. It's just over the top, but in a good way. You know, you can handle it. If you played some of the Uncharted games before, you'll really like the story and the character interactions. But if you don't, they might fall in our next category. Let me start by saying this. Uncharted 4 is a tough game to review because there's really two audiences, the people who haven't played Uncharted games before and the people who have played Uncharted games before. Some of the bad, especially for the people who have come not knowing what an Uncharted game entails or holds for them, some of the slower parts of the game can really be cumbersome and they might turn people off from this game. The slice of life of Nathan Drake without treasure hunting is pretty boring, even for me, a big fan of the game, so I couldn't imagine what it would be like if you'd never played an Uncharted game and you couldn't care less about the character development or the interactions between them. Naughty Dog has one of the biggest shameless plugs in all of gaming history because you actually have to play one of their older games in this section. It's just a couple slow parts. Otherwise, I would say I love this game. I think it's the best of the series. I'd give it a 9 out of 10, but it's a little biased. You'll have to figure it out for yourself. I do recommend playing 1 through 3, but you obviously don't have to because this is a good enough standalone game. Now, we'll start with the next game. The big AAA shooter, Doom. The best parts of Doom come from its mechanics. The shooting is not only rewarding, but fun to do. The glory kills are a nice addition, even if they do get a little tiring after a while. It's definitely the most fun shooter I've played in a while, with no huge gimmicks, and a little bit of retro gameplay added in the mix. The bad from this title comes from its short and limited amount of replayability. The short campaign, which only lasted me about 10 hours, although it could last you longer, depending on how much secrets you go for. I just got tired of it and said, no, not doing it. So I just kind of rushed through it, and it was way too easy. Obviously, you can change the difficulty, but it was just very simple. The AI wasn't that great, and they can only throw so many barons of hell at you before you get bored with it. Multiplayer is awful, so there's not a lot of replayability. It's definitely worth your time to play at least once, though, so it might not be a bad game to rent. Maybe borrow from a friend. Who knows? I just wouldn't spend $60 on it. I'd give it maybe a 6.8. I almost went 6.9, but that'd be too easy. Next game on the list, we'll kind of go a little bit more rapid fire with these next couple because they're not quite as big. But we'll start with Fire Emblem Fates. I am by no means a Fire Emblem diehard. I really got started with Awakening back for the 3DS a couple years ago, and I've been playing ever since. I put a lot of hours on Awakening, and the same goes for Fates. Partially because it gives you so much content to play through, basically 3 stories. So, give or take about 40 hours per story, more or less, depending on your playstyle, difficulty, that kind of thing. I originally didn't like the characters as much as Awakening, but I actually grew to love them quite a bit, and I think Revelations is a fun way to get everyone you want to play through and kind of pick and choose who you want to play with. It's my favorite game probably of the year, pretty close to Uncharted. I highly recommend it. The only thing you have to get over is sometimes it's a little over the top on the anime style, but they cut down on it because the Japanese version was even too bad for the US audiences. Next up, we'll talk Overwatch. I like the art style. Haven't played it, but I like butts. 10 out of 10. And a few more titles just to wrap up. I like Dark Souls. I liked Valkyria Chronicles. Finally got to play the remastered edition of Gravity Rush. The Witness was fine. Past that, I really haven't played a whole lot. I heard Homefront was bad. I heard The Division wasn't as good as it was supposed to be. But I'm sure there'll be plenty more of good games in the future. Maybe even some in June. Who knows? But for today, I think we'll sign off, and I'll probably see you guys around real soon.